We are live now.
Welcome to the latest installment of the USINPAC Leadership Dialogue Series. USINPAC is a bipartisan organization representing the 3 million Indian Americans throughout the United States and has been engaging with both Democratic and Republican officials since 2004. Just as we did for each of the prior visits by Prime Minister Modi to the United States, USINPAC has been instrumental in supporting the efforts to strengthen the US-India relationship, and tomorrow we'll be hosting a community reception in honor of his visit that will be attended by public officials and Indian American leaders. With Prime Minister Modi addressing a joint session of Congress soon, we are joined by one of the most senior officials in the United States regarding foreign policy, Congressman Ed Royce, Chairman on the Foreign Relations Committee. Congressman Royce has been instrumental in arranging for PM Modi to address a joint session of Congress. Chairman Royce, thank you for joining us today. The first question is, can you please give us your perspective on current state of US-India relations?
Well, I think the relationship is very strong. It's certainly a lot stronger than it was a generation ago. Part of that has been the strengthened ties that we have with India now, recognizing that with the two great democracies in the world, if we cooperate, we bring much more stability. And so, in order to do that, we've had greater counterterrorism cooperation. Certainly, we've worked hard to try to get more investment between India and the United States, more trade, but we've also worked on the civilian nuclear energy agreement. Issues like that have helped build confidence and build bridges. And so we're in a very different place than we were 20 years ago. I can share with you when we started the India caucus, for example, we had maybe a dozen members here in Congress. Today there's 160 members, and I've chaired that India caucus many times over the years in order to try to build the relationship. So I think it's very strong on a number of levels, but it could be a lot stronger, and that's why this trip is very important.
Great, thank you, Valid. Thank you for your inputs on that. The next question is coming from the chairman of US India Political Action Committee, Mr. Sanjay Puri. Sanjay? Okay, so basically, the question is PM Modi to address a joint session of Congress is a rare honor. You have played an important role with Speaker Ryan to facilitate this. Can you give your thoughts on it?
Well, let me explain some of my thoughts. The first is that I mentioned I mentioned what we've done on trade and investment. The Prime Minister shared with us in my last trip to Delhi that his goal was to replace the red tape with a red carpet for investment. To the Indian American community here in the United States, they have a great deal of experience with doing business in India. And I think this attitude, the same attitude we saw in Gujarat, I first traveled there to see the Prime Minister the day after the earthquake in Gujarat. And I watched him taking control of that situation, bringing order out of chaos. And I watched as Gujarat began to grow at 10% per year under his leadership as chief minister at the time. My thought in all of this is that if he can bring the same reforms to the government in India, and if we can work on the US side to simplify regulations and make ease of business and liberalizing trade with India a priority here in the United States as well, this should be a great win-win. And it's the Indo-American community that is the bridge in all of this in terms of trade between and investment between India and the United States. All of this is important because it also increases the economic strength of India. And I think geopolitically, it's in our interest to do what we can do to build up economies that are built on the same shared values that we have in the United States. India is committed to political pluralism. It's committed to tolerance. We have the same commitments in our Constitution. Look, we don't always achieve it in the United States. They don't always achieve it in India, but Both are working in the correct direction. And when we recognize that India is in a tough neighborhood and we see what we can do in building opportunity for the next generation in California and across the United States and in all of India through this relationship, we begin to understand how important this is and how important the visit of the Prime Minister is, as he will amplify this message.
Thank you so much. The next question is coming from, again, the chairman of the US India Political Action Committee, Mr. Congressman.
Give me the question if you could.
What are your expectations on PM Modi's visit? Do you have an agenda to discuss?
Yes, I think some of the issues that will be discussed, for example, further steps in the civilian nuclear energy cooperation, further steps in our efforts at on energy, further steps also in space exploration. We have programs here in the United States and programs in India where the next generation of astronauts and those who are working on the frontier of space exploration are exchanging ideas. Certainly, further advances in trade and investment as we have an effort to make India, put India on the map for U.S. investment, given some of the vision that the Prime Minister has for co-development for India's defense and security needs. These are all issues that will be discussed.
Thank you so much. The next question is coming from one of the core teams of USINPAC, Mr. Vikram Chauhan.
Congressman Royce, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, nice to see you again, sir. And again, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, probably, after Prime Minister's speech. So this question I have is coming from our constituents in North Carolina. Since the last decade, we have been maturing our relationship with between the two nations. We had seen the landmark nuclear deal, the two visits by President Obama, and probably 4 visits by Prime Minister Modi to the U.S. How do you see the U.S.-India relations under a new president, the next president? Can you hear me?
I
think we have some technical difficulties.
And I can tell. Let me just share with you some of the advantages that trade. First, India has a system that basically, so in addition to the results of investment going into India from around the world, it's been a much more positive.
Congressman, I think we having some technical difficulties. Are we still live?
Hopefully they can hear you. Keep using the mic.
I think we are back. Sorry, I think you had
Sorry about the
frozen.
connection.
Yeah, I think you're back, sir.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you fine now.
Right. So you were talking about the maturing of the relationship, and I think the question which came from around the country was, how do you see the relationship progressing with the next president?
I think that the key question here is what initiatives Congress can move and what initiatives can be moved in India. And I see a continued engagement based upon a building on civilian nuclear energy cooperation, additional advantage in what we're seeing on defense cooperation, on energy cooperation. There's a number of initiatives that we're doing on space. We will build on all of this going forward, where, again, the U.S. and India needs to be more closely aligned in sharing data. Now, we've made advances on this front, but there's more that we need to do in counterterrorism. And so these are the issues that on the Foreign Affairs Committee we're engaged with India directly on. We're also involved in sending larger delegations over to India, and there are increasingly large delegations from India to the United States. These are trade missions and initiatives on other issues as well. So you can see that the relationship is much closer. I've had the opportunity in the past to go to the International Fleet Review in Mumbai and see some of the cooperation up front, see the capacity that India has. It's very, very impressive. We need to be working more closely with the Indian Navy, the Indian Air Force and Army.
Thank you, sir. So what do you think as the perspectives from the role of the Indian Americans and us as USINPAC for building this strong relationship between US and India? So what do you advise us to or recommend us?
Well, I think you've worked hand in hand with the members of the House and the Senate in building that relationship. If we go back 24 years ago and compare where we are today, it's been an enormous breakthrough in terms of again, a foundation now on those shared values. And so I anticipate more of that type of work together in order to continue to deepen the relationship and create more opportunities. With the world developing as rapidly as it is, and with the talent that exists in India, and so many Indo-Americans that are the bridge here to investment here in the United States as well, I see this as a limitless opportunity if we can focus more attention on it.
Thank you, sir. So do we have any other questions for Space?
I think we have a lot of questions coming from all over, but because of the time factor, we have to, because Congressman Royce has a tight schedule for now. So I think we would like to thank you for joining the Leadership Dialogue series. I think it was a pretty exciting discussion, and we got to know a lot of things from an Indian American perspective. So we'd like to thank you for that, and maybe in the future, in the coming months, in the coming weeks, maybe we'll get in a discussion format wherein we'll talk about several topics which are monumental for both US and India. So thank you so much.
I will look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank